My name is Kun Lee. I'm at AbbVie Oncology. I'm the global marketing CDx lead, and I support all oncology products that are biomarker driven in developing and working with diagnostic partners and developing and commercializing companion diagnostics. Coming from the industry, I think it all starts with the research and really understanding the science behind targets and clinically relevant targets. I think it's really starts with the science. So that's probably one big aspect, is really working across different stakeholders to really dig down and understand which are the relevant biomarkers and which ones can be targetable from a drug development standpoint. I think that's a big bottleneck from my chair. And then I think, just from a I guess from a commercialization standpoint, I think taking that and then translating that into how do we develop an assay that can be commercializable from a global standpoint. I think that's another big issue that we have to tackle from an industry standpoint. Biggest challenge, I think, by far and away, I think it's probably access and reimbursement of some of these assays. As we look to develop more efficient multi-marker panels, next-gen sequencing, I think the price of these assays and the accessibility of these assays are going to be, they're a big issue now, and I think that's going to continue. We heard throughout the conference about democratizing the next-gen sequencing platform. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to happen because it's currently very expensive. Someone has to pay for these tests, and oftentimes it's actually the pharma that's paying for these tests. So I'd like to find a solution at some point, sooner than later, but we've heard about new regulations in Europe that's going to be coming in the next 4 years. I'd love to see something that's in parallel to that, understanding how we're going to reimburse some of these next-gen sequencing panels. The most exciting is probably liquid biopsies. I mean, that's something that's, people have been talking about that for a very long time. People, been talking about less invasive methods to extract tissues and so forth, and liquid biopsy is probably the best way to go. Not sure if it's ready for prime time, but certainly something that we're looking into as a pharma company. Liquid biopsy and, of course, next-gen sequencing, I mean, that's always very exciting when you have limited tissue sample size and trying to get multi-marker status. That's always very efficient. But again, the downside there is the cost of these next-gen panels. Again, I'm going to go back to the cost issue. That's number one, is to make it more affordable, especially these multi-marker next-gen sequencing panels. I think it's also about the accessibility, local accessibility. We heard throughout the conference about centralized versus decentralized or localized testing. I think we have to make these decentralized sooner than later, because oftentimes we're talking about these cancer patients that don't have a lot of time, and they progress very quickly throughout different lines of therapy. So I think having that local accessibility, I think that's going to hopefully boost the testing, and then also help in getting these tests broadly utilized across different cancer types. There's so many different stakeholders here. I mean, there's pharma, there's academia, there's diagnostic manufacturers, there's now regulators that have all the new insights, especially in Europe with the IVDR. I think it's creating forum for all of us to come together and just have an open discussion, dialogue on what's right for the patient. I think if we have more opportunities for all of us to come together and have an open chat about this, I think that's probably the best way to go. I think earlier the better, but I know it's very hard for all of us to come together, but maybe it's some of the key congresses, pathology congresses, that we can come and have this open dialogue. I think that's probably the best way to go. Number one is the new IVDR in Europe, and helping my organization increase awareness and education on what's coming. So that's, we've got 4 years left. So now we've got a lot of things to do. So one of the speakers talked about workshops and really learning from perhaps our diagnostic manufacturers on what are really the steps necessary to move on to that IVDR era. So I think that's number one, is how do I get that process in place for my pharma company. That's number one. Number two, I think the topic on next-gen sequencing, I think, it just reconfirmed my belief that price is the number one issue. And if that is resolved, every other issue that has been identified goes away. So that really underscores the importance of pricing. I think those are the two big ones for me. So we'll be one step closer to the new IVDR, right? So hopefully we'll get some further clarity on what the requirements are and what the steps are. I think that's number one. And then I'm really hoping that we can make some real progress on next-gen sequencing and liquid biopsies, and really getting better understanding on how we can really push that out as a commercial assay. I think hopefully that will be another big topic at the next meeting.